You've done it 1,000 times. Someone sneezes and without even thinking, you say, "Bless you." But have you ever stopped to wonder why? Why would a sneeze, of all things, require a blessing? What if I told you the answer involves a deadly plague, a terrified pope, and an ancient belief that your soul could accidentally escape through your nose?
Okay, I was not expecting the soul escaping through the nose part. That's quite the opener. Where on earth does this story begin?
It begins with fear. Long before anyone understood germs or viruses, ancient civilizations were deeply suspicious of the sneeze. The Greeks, the Romans, the Egyptians, they all had superstitions about it. And they weren't all negative, actually. In ancient Greece, a sneeze was sometimes considered a good omen, a sign from the gods.
Really? So a sneeze could be a message from Zeus?
Essentially, yes. There's a famous scene in Homer's Odyssey where Penelope's son Telemachus sneezes at an important moment, and she takes it as a divine confirmation that her husband Odysseus will return home. The sneeze was seen as a kind of prophecy.
That's fascinating. So it started as a positive thing. When did it become something that needed a blessing?
That shift happened gradually, and it's rooted in a much darker belief. Many ancient cultures believed that the soul resided inside the body as a kind of breath or spirit. The Latin word for soul is spiritus, literally means breath. The Greek word for pneuma means both breath and spirit.
So there was a direct link between breathing and the soul in the ancient mind.
Exactly. And a sneeze is the most violent, uncontrolled expulsion of breath your body can produce. Air shoots out of your nose at up to 100 miles per hour. For ancient people who believed the soul was literally a breath inside you, a sneeze looked terrifyingly like your soul trying to escape.
Wait, really? They genuinely thought your soul could fly out of your nose when you sneezed?
Some did, yes, and the fear didn't stop there. Others believed the opposite, that the moment of a sneeze, when your body was convulsing and momentarily vulnerable, was an opportunity for evil spirits to enter. Your mouth and nose were open, your defenses were down. It was a moment of spiritual danger either way.
So, bless you was essentially a protective spell, a verbal shield against spiritual attack.
That's a perfect way to describe it. But the story that most people associate with bless you, the one that cemented it into Western culture, takes us to Rome in the year 590 AD. And it involves one of the most devastating plagues in European history.
This is the Pope Gregory connection.
It is. In 590 AD, a terrible plague was ravaging Rome. People were dying in the streets. Bodies were piling up faster than they could be buried. The city was in absolute chaos. And one of the earliest symptoms of this plague was violent, repeated sneezing.
So a sneeze went from being a spiritual concern to being a very real, very terrifying sign that you might be about to die.
Exactly. Imagine living in Rome at that time. You're walking in the market and the person next to you sneezes. That sound, which today we barely notice, would have sent a chill down your spine. It could mean they had the plague. It could mean you were about to catch it.
That puts it in a completely different context. A sneeze was essentially a death sentence in some cases.
And this is where Pope Gregory the First answers the story. He became pope right in the middle of this catastrophe. He was desperate to do something, anything to protect his people and show spiritual leadership. So he ordered that prayers and blessings be said constantly throughout the city. And specifically, he decreed that whenever someone sneezed, the people around them should immediately say, "God bless you."
As a form of prayer for the sick person, or as protection for everyone nearby?
Both. It was a plea to God to protect the sneezer from the plague and to shield everyone around them from infection. It was spiritual first aid in a world that had no medical alternative. There were no antibiotics, no hospitals, no understanding of how disease spread. All they had was prayer.
That's incredibly poignant. A whole civilization terrified and helpless, and the best tool they had was 2 words: bless you.
And here's what's remarkable. The plague eventually subsided. Rome recovered. But the habit didn't go away. The association between sneezing and saying bless you had become so deeply ingrained during those terrifying months that it stuck. Generation after generation kept saying it, long after anyone remembered why.
It became automatic, like a cultural reflex passed down through centuries.
Precisely, and it spread across Europe through the influence of the Catholic Church. Different languages developed their own versions. In German, it's Gesundheit, which means health. In Spanish, the first sneeze gets Jesus, the second gets Maria, and the third gets Jose.
They escalate through the Holy Family. That's brilliant. 3 sneezes and you've invoked the entire nativity.
This shows how different cultures adapted the same basic impulse, the need to say something protective when someone sneezes, into their own traditions. The French say "à vos souhaits," which means "to your wishes." In some Arabic-speaking cultures, you say "yarhamuka Allah," which means "may God have mercy on you."
So, virtually every culture on Earth has some version of this. That suggests the instinct goes deeper than just one pope's decree.
It does. Anthropologists have found sneeze blessings in cultures that had no contact with Rome or Christianity. In parts of Africa and indigenous Australian communities and remote Asian cultures, they all have some form of verbal response to a sneeze. It seems to be a near-universal human instinct to acknowledge this sudden, involuntary, explosive moment.
Why do you think that is? What is it about the sneeze specifically that triggers this response across so many unconnected cultures?
There are a few theories. One is that a sneeze is one of the few bodily functions you truly cannot control. You can hold your breath, suppress a cough to some extent, but a sneeze overwhelms you. Your eyes close involuntarily, your whole body convulses. For a brief moment, you're not in control of yourself. And that loss of control across cultures seems to trigger a protective response from the people around you.
It's almost like a moment of communal care. Something just happened to you that you couldn't control, so let me acknowledge it and wish you well.
There's also a practical element that often gets overlooked. Before germ theory, people noticed that sneezing often preceded illness. They didn't know about viruses, but they could see the pattern. Someone sneezes repeatedly, and a few days later, they're seriously ill. Saying "bless you" may have been an early, intuitive form of public health acknowledgement.
A kind of ancient early warning system. I've noticed you might be getting sick, and I'm wishing you well.
Exactly. And here's something that brings it full circle to the modern day. During the COVID-19 pandemic, sneezing in public suddenly became terrifying again. People would flinch, move away, give dirty looks. For the first time in centuries, a sneeze carried real social weight and genuine fear, just like it did in Pope Gregory's Rome.
That's a powerful parallel. 1,400 years apart, and the same sound triggered the same primal reaction.
And yet, even during COVID, people still said "bless you." The habit was so deeply embedded that even in a world of face masks and hand sanitizer, this 6th century tradition persisted. That's the power of cultural programming.
So the next time someone sneezes and I automatically say "bless you," I'm participating in a tradition that stretches back through COVID, through centuries of European history, through Pope Gregory's plague-ravaged Rome, all the way to ancient beliefs about the soul being a breath that could escape through your nose.
All of that compressed into 2 words you say without thinking. That's the hidden why.
Extraordinary! I will never say "bless you" absent-mindedly again.
And that's all for today on The Why Behind Everything. Thank you for listening.
Next time, we're diving into something you see every single day, but have probably never questioned. Why is the sky blue? The answer is stranger and more beautiful than you might expect, and it starts with the Victorian scientists who proved it by shouting at smoke.
You won't want to miss it. Make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell so you never miss an episode. We'll see you next time.